because we know the oil palm plantation, oil palm industry, all over the world always have a lot of certification, but you still lose the trust. Okay, so you may still have the market present, for example, but you still face the rising barriers. So the future question is not only can palm oil produce. So the real question is, can palm oil remain legitimate under the rising evidence standard? So the central argument here, so the slide is the backbone on the whole talk, right? So we can say that my central argument is this. So productivity alone is not, we can say not enough, and productivity must rest on ecological function, and ecological function that you can see here must be supported by the governance credibility. And only then can the industry can achieve on the long-term legitimacy. So let me explain this carefully. So many systems still can produce in a short term, right? So even when the ecological base is weakening, so this is a common in agriculture. It just only not the oil palm crops. It can be for others crops. For example, rice. It can be on the oil pineapple, durian, for example, because in Malaysia we have a lot of the durian, right? So yield can be temporarily protected by the input, by expansion, which is our total planted area, by the short-term correction, right? So for example, we put some kinds of fertilizers to do the corrective, right? And also even we have favorable weather. For example, right now in Malaysia, we have reached our temperatures about 30 degrees to 40s even. So our durian coming season, even you are not inducing on the durian on the program, right? Hormonal induction, for example, you still get your crops or your plants can get on the flowering, right? So this is what we are facing right now. So, but then it doesn't mean that the system is healthy. Because why I said this, if the soil function is declining, if the runoff increasing and the biological activities is weakening, and if resilience is low, then the system is producing on the borrowed time, right? So then comes the next layer on the governance credibility. Because today claims, we can say that it has been tested, and reporting even can be tested. Traceability also can be tested, right? So landscape risk is tested. Even due diligence is tested. So even if a plantation is productive, it still faces a market problem if it cannot show credible evidence of responsible production. So I think this is not only on the flow of economic, this is a practical, because we need to understand the productivity without ecological integrity, it becomes more unstable. So sustainability without governance credibility, it becomes unconvincing. Yeah. So, and without both, which is on the productivity, on the sustainability that work together, on the long-term legitimacy is weak because everybody can argue your credibility. All right. So you can see that on the global production structure. So this actually shows the structural on the reality of global oil industry today, which is the production is that highly concentrated. So you can see that concentration, yes, it creates a strength, right? The concentration, which is that on the production, on the planted area, but it also creates risk. And this is very obvious when the production is concentrated in a few high capacities countries, and the industry gain the skills, specialization, processing capabilities, right? Export infrastructure, and even on the cost efficiency. But the risk is equally obvious. So we can see that when so much of the global supply is concentrated in Indonesia, for example, in Malaysia, right? So the whole system become exposed to the shock of what? In just a few geographies, right? So if weather changes, for example, the labor tightens or planting slows and fertilizer use become false, right? So regulation have been changed, or even the export policy shift in those countries. So the whole global will feel the market effect. All right, so this is why I do not see the global concentration only as an economic advantage. All right, so what I can see is that it as a systemic vulnerability. Right. So for example, at present, you can see that USDA outlooks places Indonesia around 47 million metric ton and Malaysia around about 19 million metric ton for 2025 and 2026. Right. So you can see that total global near almost 80 million metric tons. Metric tons. Right. So this means the industry remains dominated by these two anchors. And this is a very powerful structure, all right, but it's also a sensitive one. So what I can see, or based on what my prediction, right? So is that the future market volatility will increasingly not coming from the price cycle, but from the weather shock, labor constraints, biofuel policy, and also on the regulatory compliance stress that concentrated on these same producing zones. Okay, so when we discuss the future of the oil palm, we must not only focus or discuss on the hectares or the planted area. We must discuss on the system concentration risk, right? So you can see